Hello and welcome to Good Morning UK Have Your Say, a Force for Good's mid-morning show coming to you live from our Nerve Centre here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. On this auspicious day, 15th of September, Battle of Britain Day, reminding us that we are British. We love the United Kingdom and we want to stay together. And that's what this programme is all about. Please send in your questions and your comments. Today is Battle of Britain Day, the 15th of September. We'll be speaking about that more at the top of the hour on our This Day in British History segment. This is our 34th show now. We're going to be talking about the complainers. Who are the complainers? The complainers are not a pop group. They are in fact a political party going by the name of the Scottish National Party. The complainers, because that's all that they ever do is to complain, as we well know. And they had their annual conference this week, if you could call it a conference. It's basically it was online, so how much of a conference really is it when it's just online listening to people rotting off? But that's what they had, and we're going to look at some of the things that their dear leader was saying, because quite frankly, some of the things their dear leader was saying were completely bang out of order and not in fact correct at all, and I'm going to be looking at that in a few minutes. Morag55RC says, Morag says, I'm frightened of the adoration the SNP receive. Who are these people? Well, they're a sort of cult group, really, I think is what they are, cultish. And when you're dealing with a cult, you've got to keep the cult members happy, and you've always got to be preparing them for the next great thing that's coming round the corner, which of course is, for the cult members of the Scottish National Party, is the long-promised referendum never to be held. And in that regard, I want just to straight away pick up on something that Nicola Sturgeon said that has been unnerving me in the last 24 hours, and it really does need to be said. And what she basically said, and I'll read it out because this was the end of her great speech that she delivered on the internet. And, you know, there's a long-running theme within the Scottish National Party to try to make it look like the British Parliament is not legitimate. Now, that's a very dangerous way to go down for any democratic politician to claim that a parliament that many of their own people are elected to is somehow not legitimate or is governing without the quote-unquote consent of the Scottish people. Now, this is a big thing that we're going to be hearing now over the next 2 or 3 years, that Parliament, the British Parliament in London, is governing without the consent of the people of Scotland. Here is what she said. Frankly, it is not up to a Westminster government, which has just 6 MPs in Scotland, to decide our future without the consent of the people who live here. Okay, that's their angle. Now, this is dangerous because it suggests that Westminster is somehow illegitimate, that it's somehow not democratic, that it somehow has no right to govern in Scotland. All of that is wrong. Whatever you may think about the government in Westminster, the Parliament is 100% democratic by our standards, and it is most certainly legitimate, and it governs with the consent of the people of Scotland right now. Whatever it may do, the British Parliament is governing with the consent of the people of Scotland right now. How do I know that? I know that because on the 12th of December 2019, we had a general election for a new British Parliament, and 2,759,000 261 people voted in Scotland for representatives to be sent to that Parliament. Okay, over 2.75 million Scots, which was 68% of the electorate, voted for a new British Parliament to be convened at Westminster. So whatever that British Parliament now does, it is governing with the consent of at least those over 2.75 million people who voted for it to be convened and who voted for it to govern not just Scotland, but all of the United Kingdom. That's how our representative parliamentary democracy works, is we vote for representatives to go to Westminster, and when they're there, they sit there with our permission and with our consent, and they govern with our consent until the next general election. That's the system that we have. Whatever you may think about it, whether you think it can be improved or not, that's the system that we have. It's entirely legitimate, entirely democratic, and it ensures that people govern with our consent, including people who go to that Parliament who don't like that Parliament, for example, the Scottish National Party. So we all voted for a new British Parliament to be convened back on the 12th of December 2019. We have that British Parliament, and it's up to that British Parliament to govern for all of us, wherever we may be here in our United Kingdom. And it governs with our consent because we literally voted to send people to it. So she's so wrong. She's so wrong when she says that it's not for the Westminster government to decide our future without our consent, because the fact of the matter is it decides our future with our consent. We literally voted for all the people who go there, who convene there, and who form the government there. Okay, so she's trying to turn reality on its head. I just want to point that out there. Now, folks, we've got a great guest coming up at the top of the hour, who is a guest from England, who is a YouTuber, a successful YouTuber. He's called Ashley, otherwise known as That Preston Journalist. He's coming up at 11 o'clock, and really looking forward to interviewing him. Christopher says, you're right about them trying to undermine the UK government by suggesting it is not legitimate. They all sing the same song when they object to the PM visiting Scotland, all part of their strategy to undermine authority. That's so true. Bobalicious on TikTok says, Scotland is slowly sleepwalking into a civil war. Well, let's hope it certainly doesn't come to that. But the danger when SNP people talk in that way, giving the impression that a parliament is not legitimate, that is dangerous talk that they're doing, and that's playing with fire when they shouldn't be doing anything of the kind. They should be respecting the constitution at the very least. Sandra says, we should all be so proud that we're standing for the union. We can never back down against the cult. Fat Biker wonders, isn't Scotland building the other two ships? I don't know. It's been meant to be building the other two ships, but nothing has ever get done about it because, they couldn't. The SNP unfortunately couldn't organise the proverbial. Richard wonders, if anything, Johnston should visit Scotland and the rest of the United Kingdom far more regularly. And of course, they are quick enough. They don't like the Parliament, but they're quick enough to claim hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds from it, as Bill points out. And Jonathan raises that constitutional point. If Westminster is not governing with the consent of the Scottish people, why do the SNP bother to turn up there? That's so true. By turning up there, they do legitimise it 100%. Quite rightly so as well, because people in Scotland want to be represented at the British level. A way back during the 70s and 80s, the whole argument for devolution was that what you could do is, if you had a devolved parliament in Scotland, then issues that needed to be done, that could be done at the Scottish level alone, could be handled by a parliament, and issues at a wider United Kingdom level could be handled by the British Parliament. Whatever you may think about that, that was the reasoning. So eventually the devolutionists got their way and they got a parliament. And here in Scotland now we have two votes. We have a vote for the people who are running us specifically in Scotland, and we have a vote for the people who are running us in Britain. Now, whatever you may think about that, that's actually an extension in a sense of giving us more opportunity to vote for this, that, and the next thing. However, that did not in any way satisfy the Scottish Nationalists. Even though they had a parliament, that still wasn't good enough for them. What they then did when they took power in 2007 was they changed it from an executive, which suggested a devolved arm of the British Parliament, which is what Holyrood is. It's a devolved arm of the British Parliament. They changed that and they started to call themselves the Scottish Government. Now, what that did in the minds of everybody, including Unionists, was it gave the impression that Holyrood was now an equal and opposite Parliament to the British Parliament. It gave the sense that there were now two governments, when in fact, as if they were both equal and opposite, existing on the same constitutional plane. When in fact, what you had, and what we actually have in reality, is a British Parliament at the top, and the devolved parliaments underneath it, in a hierarchical, in a vertical relationship, where you could think of, for example, Holyrood as an arm of the body of the British Parliament. That's the correct way of thinking about it, in that manner. But what the Scottish Nationalists have tried to do since they've been in power in 2007 is to change the name and give the impression that Holyrood is equal and opposite. Well, if it is indeed equal and opposite, then people are going to say, well, why isn't it independent? Why doesn't it just go its own way? And the only way the SNP can sustain that is by giving the impression that this Parliament here is somehow, oppressing it and stopping it going its way. Okay, so they've changed the way we view it, when in fact what we should understand it is in its original form, which is as a triangle, with the British Parliament up here representing everybody and the devolved arms of the other places coming off that body like arms and legs. That's the correct way to understand devolution. But oh no, the Scottish National Party have perverted that understanding to make it look like, in fact, Holyrood is equal and opposite to the British Parliament, which it is not. It's not, and it was never meant to be. And that's not what devolution is about. Devolution is not about creating equal and opposite parliaments throughout the United Kingdom. The ideal theory of it is to create assemblies which can deal with local matters, while the British Parliament deals with other matters, or, if necessary, takes the final decision on certain issues when the integrity of the nation is at stake, such as, for example, when the Scottish Nationalists try their referendum gig and they try to break up the United Kingdom. When they try to do that, it is entirely for the British Parliament to say no, because the British Parliament has the responsibility and the duty to keep us together as one nation. Yes, Adam makes the good analogy. He says, think of Britain as a human body. Westminster is the head and the devolved administrations are the arms and legs. For Scotland to be independent, you'd have to have one of your limbs amputated. I like that. That's good. That's good stuff. Folk, please do share this. If you're watching on Twitter, please retweet with a positive quote tweet, and we can then retweet you to over 26,000 people, and that helps you as well. And share on from YouTube and from Facebook as well, please. Good stuff. And another point that Madame Sturgeon made in her speech was, and this is a favourite one as well, is that we can be like Denmark, which I've never personally been to Denmark, but as far as Scottish nationalists are concerned, it seems to be the nirvana of the world, and it's their lodestar, as it were, that they look to as what Scotland could be like. And she cited the case of Denmark in her speech to her folk. Well, Denmark is Denmark because Denmark has been being Denmark for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's not like Scotland can just become like another country. But there's reasons. If Denmark is economically successful, one of the reasons for that is it shares a border with Germany. And so it gets lots of trade with a massive landmass of Germany. And this was pointed out by one of her economic advisors, actually, who is a Scottish nationalist. He goes by the name of Mark Blythe, and he's at the Watson Institute of Economics at Brown University at Rhode Island. And he, quote, mocked the SNP's repeated claim that Scotland would become like Denmark if it was independent. No, he said, you wouldn't be Denmark. Denmark took 600 years to become Denmark. And he went on, and he's talking about the United Kingdom. If the Union has been together for over 300 years, he points out the Union has been together for over 300 years. We, of course, trace the Union back into the mists of time, but let's take his point that it's been together officially since the Parliamentary Union of 1707. So, he says, if pulling apart the years of economic integration with Europe, which was 47 years, if that's going to hurt, then 300 is going to hurt a lot. And he goes on and he uses quite colourful language here. And he says, we've got a complete lack of specificity in thinking about Scotland's current business model. Instead of which we've got, Denmark is awesome, we should be like Denmark. If we were independent, we would be Denmark. And he replies, no, we wouldn't be Denmark. The Danes have a far bigger connection to Germany than Scotland. They're a peninsula that's stuck on the backside of the hinterland of Germany. The basic reason that Denmark is rich isn't really its social democratic traditions or any of that. It's the fact that you've got 80 million Germans at your rear. It doesn't actually say that. I've moderated it for a family audience. But the point is that it sits right next to a massive market. That's why why Denmark does quite well. And guess what? Scotland does quite well because we also sit right next to a massive market with whom we do the majority of our trade. And it's called the rest of the United Kingdom. So it makes sense for us to develop that economic relationship instead of looking away over to Scandinavia and to these markets, which are ultimately much smaller for us than the massive market of the rest of the United Kingdom, particularly of England, of course. So, folks, we've got a guest coming up at the top of the hour. Now, today is Battle of Britain Day. Battle of Britain Day. And let me tell you a little about Battle of Britain Day. It's the 15th of September. Now, the Battle of Britain had been coming to get... The Battle of Britain there had been skirmishes all over the United Kingdom since 1939, air skirmishes regarding those sorts of things. But the Battle of Britain as an official battle, if you like, is thought to have begun on the 10th of July 1940 and ended on the 31st of October 1940. So it was over the summer of 1940 that we had the Battle of Britain. And the men and the pilots and aircrew who fought in that have become known as the Few. And just a couple of days ago I wondered, well, how many are we talking about when we talk about the Few? And so I checked this little book that we have here. in the office, The Battle of Britain Story by Graham Pitchfork. And in it, he says that the few were 2,353 young men from Great Britain and 574 from overseas, making just short of 3,000. These were the pilots and aircrew who are officially recognised as having taken part in the Battle of Britain. And he states that Fighter Command, which was the name of the aircraft who fought there, lost 544 aircrew. And of course there was a further 422 injured. And we've been remembering them lately. Of course, there's the Battle of Britain Memorial, which was established on the Thames, on the embankment, which I definitely recommend people have a look at. And there's also a Battle of Britain Memorial Museum just outside Folkestone in Kent, where there is all the names of the few. That's all the few, almost just like less than 3,000, who are emblazoned on a memorial wall there. And we're always conscious as well that Fighter Command was led by Sir Hugh Dowding, who was a Scotsman from Dumfriesshire, and he is credited with being the mastermind that was able to ensure that so few were able to defeat so many. He was able to ensure that the resources of aircrew and aircraft were properly allocated and resourced in order that the battle was finally won. And today, the 15th of September, was chosen as Battle of Britain Day because the Luftwaffe launched its largest and most concentrated air attack on this day, the 15th of September, in the hope of destroying the RAF, but being disappointed because, of course, as we know, they were another lot who were sent homeward to think again. So today is Battle of Britain Day, when we commemorate the few. Now, we have a guest coming up at the top of the hour, and I'm glad to say that I notice our guest is in the studio now. So let me bring in, folks, please say hello to Ashley. Bringing Ashley in right now. Hey Ashley, hi.
Hi Alistair, can you hear me?
Absolutely, we can hear you loud and clear.
Good.
Thanks very much.
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. I was just looking at your YouTube page this morning, and I have to say it's doing incredibly well. I mean, you post short videos from a pro-UK perspective, and you're getting thousands of views on these, and that's really, really good. I was just wondering, by way of introduction, if you could tell us what's the score there on TikTok? On YouTube. How long have you been doing it, and why did you decide to set up your channel?
Yeah, so I've only been doing it for a few months now. Basically, I don't believe that the pro-UK stance gets anywhere near enough coverage in the mainstream media. In fact, it gets next to none. You're more likely to see a separatist stance on our mainstream media, even in England. And that only gives a one-sided perspective around the whole country. And I think it also causes a lot of division, where, you know, a lot of English people might think, oh, the Scots hate us and vice versa and things like that. And it's simply not true. And people need to really realise the truth. The only division being caused is by the SNP and now the Greens as well. But the majority of the country are certainly pro-UK, without a doubt.
Exactly. Well, it's good to hear that, because, as we always say, if you're in England and you're watching the television and all you see is Bunter Blackford and others, who we're calling them the complainers, you know, based on that other Scottish group that people remember, the complainers, and that's essentially all that they are. And they never have anything good and happy to say. I mean, when was the last time you saw like a ray of light shining out of Ian Blackford's eyes or any of the others? It's all just aggression and nastiness. And so I can perfectly understand how some people in England are going to say, oh, the Scots should just go and do their own thing and be done with them. I mean, do you hear that at all from any of your compatriots down your way?
Yeah, you do hear it. A lot of people, but it's not because the people don't like Scottish people. It's nothing to do with that, or don't like Scotland. It's because they don't like the SNP, and some people don't always manage to separate the two. So, you know, you hear it all. Just let them have the referendum. Let them go and do what they want. But it's only through the sheer disgust at the SNP. As you say, all we hear is negativity or English people. Well, all right, and they never say it quite that bluntly, do they? They always pretend to be insulted when they're called anti-English. But like Sturgeon in Holyrood the other week. But people do get sick of just hearing the same old negativity non-stop. And they really think sometimes that's how Scottish people view us. Mm. And there might be a minority who do, like the actual hardcore of the SNP. But the majority of the country don't. I've been to Scotland plenty of times. I've never had one bad experience yet.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Because it breaks my heart whenever I hear about people from England coming to Scotland and going away with a bad impression. And believe me, that could easily happen sometimes because, there is an element, as there is in all societies, of sort of foolish people. And but I'm glad to hear you say what you said as well. And that pleases me. That makes me happy because the last thing I want to think of is people in England, mainstream people in England, turning against the Scots, because that's working exactly into what the Scottish nationalists want. They won't say it, but division does cause division works for them, put it that way. If there's Scottish and English at each other's throats, they won't admit it, but that's working. That helps their strategy at the end of the day. And that's a terrible thing to have to point out, but it's undoubtedly the fact. Now, Ashley, I'm really amazed at your videos because you put up one yesterday and about Humza Yousaf, and it's already got, I think it was 7,000 or 5,000 views last time I looked, and that was just like last night. You must have put it up. So, what's your strategy there? How do you? How do you find a topic to talk about, and then decide that's the one? And what's the trick basically? What's the secret of getting so many views?
To be honest, it's just got to be obviously something that one, I don't want to shine a positive light on the SNP, and that'd be a difficult thing to do anyway. But you're never short of things that are going wrong, things that they're failing in, and you can literally scour newspapers, different articles, look at different people who also do similar things to what you do and I do by promoting the UK. And these articles pop up all over the place. And that one you were on about yesterday, I actually ignored it for 3 days because I believed it was just anti-SNP propaganda. I didn't believe it could be true. And just for the viewers' benefit, the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in Glasgow are having to use the Red Cross to feed staff and patients. And they're leaving people on trolleys in hospital corridors for up to 40 hours because they can't fit them in the hospital. And there's not even a mention of COVID. This is all sorts of illnesses, not just the COVID pandemic. And I honestly didn't believe it could be true, and it is. And as you said before, now Humza Yousaf is saying, don't call an ambulance. I mean, it's absolute madness.
Yeah, I know. It's frightening. It's frightening, and they can. I don't know how they're going to get out of this. I hope that for the sake of all the ill people, something is found to deal with this. But there's such a backlog now, a huge backlog. I've got an article actually here. 500,000 Scots on NHS waiting lists. Now that's that. There's always been people on NHS waiting lists, but it's never been that high. And of course, a lot of this is people who last year chose not to, for better or for worse, probably for worse, chose not to go into hospital, and now they need to be treated. and sometimes it's very serious things that they need to be treated on. And this backlog is growing and growing and growing. And I have to say, just as a wee diversion, if we keep getting locked down, that backlog is going to grow and grow and grow even more.
Yeah.
So that's part of it, and whether he's going to be able to pull out of that or not, I don't know.
Personally, I don't think Boris wants to, but I think whether he does or not remains to be seen, obviously. But with Nicola Sturgeon, I sometimes get the impression she enjoys the power. She enjoys going on TV and promoting herself constantly as this great statesman, which she undoubtedly isn't. But that's how she likes to see herself, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, and the media encourage her in that. I mean, you can't switch on the television or the radio, and you certainly can't go onto any social media channel for more than 2 or 3 seconds, literally, without seeing or hearing her. And I wonder, what must it be like to actually be her, to have such an amazing, everybody knows who you are. It's the most incredible thing. But unfortunately, it's somebody as well who doesn't ever promote a message of hope and enthusiasm for the nation. Imagine if she was somebody who was really pro-British, and every day she's going on, she's talking up Britain, how great it is to be Scottish within Britain, all that sort of stuff. I mean, we'd be living in quite literally a different mental universe,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I was watching something yesterday, and they were talking about a kind of increased level of psychosis, and sort of mental illness in society. And somebody pointed out a lot of that does come down from the leadership. If the leadership is aggressive, the people will start to get aggressive. If the leadership is chilled, the people will be chilled. If the leaders are happy and optimistic, there'll be a happy and optimistic feel of the nation. It's like a dog. Like a dog will mirror your attitude. If you're aggressive, the dog will be aggressive. If you're chilled, the dog will be chilled. If you're uptight, the dog will be uptight. That sort of thing. And it's the same with people, unfortunately. And we're somehow, anyway. That was just a wee diversion, but so absolutely true.
I was going to say, Boris has got his critics like any politician, but at least he puts across an aura of positivity. He tries to say the future's going to be bright, and he wants to promote things to be positive. Whether you like him or not, at least he does that. It's not all doom and gloom all the time, and that, as you say, that does. Although it's difficult at the moment, it does lift the mood slightly sometimes when you see things like that.
Oh yeah, and long may he continue to try to lift the mood, because that's definitely what a nation needs, especially when you're surrounded by so many dismal people.
Yeah.
Maybe being a wee bit more personal about things now, Ashley, and just to say for people watching, the name of Ashley's YouTube channel is That Preston Journalist. So if you're on YouTube and you want to check him out, and please do give him a follow, give him a subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Look out for That Preston Journalist. That's who you search for on YouTube. Now, I'd like to ask you, did you grow up with a sense of the importance of Britain, the nation, the importance of the unity of all the parts of the United Kingdom, or is this something that's really just been developing in you recently?
No, I've always been very, very proud of the UK, and I'm a bit of a history buff as well. And that things like, even going back to say things like the Spanish Armada and Napoleon and World War One, World War Two, all these things. What's not to be proud of? This nation has always punched above its weight on the world stage. We're a relatively small country. We have one of the biggest empires in world history. We're still the 5th largest economy in the world. Even today, look at the revamp our Royal Navy's getting, and it's still one of the most powerful navies afloat. It will be after these new frigates come out as well. We really punch above our weight, and I don't see why anybody would want to leave that, especially not to join the EU. So personally, I don't see why Scotland would want to leave, and I think it's just the SNP's way of staying relevant. I honestly don't believe they want a referendum. I think they just want to stay relevant.
Yes, exactly. And what you say there about the power of the United Kingdom is actually so true, because a lot of people You know, they look at the into the past, when Britain had a massive royal navy and when we had an empire and so on, when we were sitting at the top. But everything is relative because time moves on and other elements of power come in. And in our wee book here, we pointed out that if you based on a weighting of economic, technological, cultural, military and diplomatic factors, the United Kingdom is the second most powerful country in the world, according to an audit of geopolitical capability in 2019 by the Henry Jackson Society. We are the second after the United States and just before China. Now, of course, militarily, we couldn't compete with China, but China couldn't compete with us on other levels. So when you weigh it all in and you find other elements of power, Britain is still right up there in the top 5 worldwide, and long may that continue. And so, as you've just said, it makes no sense to break up from that. From your perspective, not as British but as specifically English, what could be done to help the English appreciate being British, help them appreciate the Union, as it will? Do you have any? I know what you're doing right now, right, is an amazing thing, which is firing out these videos from your perspective, which are pro-UK. So that's a huge thing that you're doing. But is there anything else that maybe the politicians could be doing to help people see the value of what we have got?
I think from an English point of view, the politicians could certainly be in Scotland a lot more promoting the UK. Now, I realise Boris isn't necessarily the most popular man up there all the time, but I think if Westminster politicians were up there a lot more, then the people of Scotland who are Unionists would see that Westminster are fully behind them and they've got their backs, if you will. Whereas at the moment, I know they've got a lot on the plate, but they're very distant, and they really need to be seen a lot more up there and, you know, defending the interest. In Scotland, I don't feel there's only one party I can see that's really got an unequivocal position of defending the Union, and that's the Scottish Tories at the minute. Whereas you could do with Labour and the Lib Dems, you know, everyone piling together to keep the UK together and put party politics aside for a bit, because if they're not careful, there will be another referendum coming down the road, and that's the last thing that anybody really needs.
That's such a good point. Is basically raising the profile of the British Parliament, the British government in Scotland, very much so, because part of the SNP strategy is to ensure that we forget about Britain. You know, is literally to drive out the idea of being British, which is by taking down British symbols, taking down the flag whenever they can. Mm-hmm. And believe me, they've done that. In the buildings that they have authority over, the SNP administration has decreed that the Union flag is not to fly, not even on dedicated days such as the Queen's birthday or anything like that, but only on Remembrance Day, 11th of November, for now. That's on buildings that they have control over, such as the Scottish Quango buildings.
Yeah.
That's a terrible thing.
It shouldn't even be within their power.
Exactly.
They're only... I always call Nicola Sturgeon the Mayor of Scotland, because that's all she is, basically. She's a Metro Mayor, like Andy Burnham or Sadiq Khan. She has no more power than they do, really. Apart from taxes. She's basically a Metro Mayor. She's not the government, and she likes to think she is. Yes,
exactly. She likes to, as we were saying earlier in the programme, she likes to give the impression that, she's equal and opposite to the British Prime Minister, when in fact that's not how devolution is meant to work at all.
No.
So she's well wrong there, and I saw her last week as well going on about how people can still be British in an independent Scotland. Well, it's hard enough to be British right now in Scotland, what with her and her supporters, what they're trying to do to us. Imagine what it would be like if they actually got their way. It doesn't bear thinking about. And believe me, some of us think Sturgeon is a bit of a character, but there's a lot worse waiting in the wings. There's even a lot worse right now in her so-called cabinet at Holyrood. I mean, she is, whatever you may think of her, she is actually one of the more moderate voices, because there are a lot of just complete Fruit Loops and crazies and people who promote really dangerous stuff. You know, there was somebody, one of our MPs, thankfully he's not an MP anymore, he lost his seat in 2019, but he actually wrote an article which I've got in our detailed files here, saying that what needs to be done is thousands and thousands of Scots need to converge on London and block the roads. And it's like, I had to read it about 10 times before I thought, is this a wee joke? Or is he actually serious? And he was actually serious. You know, can you imagine what that would do for the integrity of our social life?
Think of the division cause as well. These people are unbelievable, aren't they? You can't get your head around some of the stuff they come out with.
Yeah. Well, Adam's got a silly question here for you. He goes,
Go on.
Ashley, the voice of the nation of unity, would you rather be Prime Minister of the UK or First Minister of Scotland, and why?
Oh, that's a tough one, isn't it? If I was First Minister of Scotland, that would mean I've kicked the SNP out, so that would be a good start. But if I was Prime Minister of the UK, I'd be a lot more tough on the SNP and bring them down that way. So either. But I'll take Prime Minister of the UK.
Well, we'd quite like to see you as First Minister of Scotland, actually, because I think you'd do well. You've got certainly more common sense than the so-called First Minister right now. Oh, Ashley, that was great. That's 20 minutes have just gone flying by, folks. Yeah. Please do check out Ashley's site. If you're looking for his site on YouTube, just search for that Preston Journalist, and please do subscribe to him. That's Ashley, a great British patriot and somebody that we're very pleased and delighted to have met the acquaintance of. And Ashley, will definitely have you back on again. We try to get guests every week, and then at Christmas time we have a 10-hour union telethon where we're always looking for guests as well. So we'll definitely, if things are okay with at your end, we'll invite you on to our union telethon as well, which will be in December. So we'll definitely be keeping in touch with you. Thank you very, very much, Ashley, for coming in today, for giving us your time, and we'll see you again. Okay, take care, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you to all the viewers. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Goodbye. Fantastic. That's Ashley, that Preston Journalist, on YouTube. Please do check him out. Christopher says, thank you, Ashley. We'll follow you. Robert Pollock says, great to see someone defending the real Scottish position down south, rule Britannia. Isn't it absolutely fantastic, Robert? That's good. We need more folk in England like Ashley standing up in that way. Great breath of fresh air and great enthusiasm there from Ashley. That really was a tonic. Sandra says, great interview. Thank you, Alistair and Ashley. Alan says, thanks, Ashley. Tommy says, well done, Ashley. Great guest, wasn't he just? And Sandra says that she's already been watching that Preston Journalist and sharing his YouTube. And what a great guy. Absolutely. This weekend is the 18th of September, and it's the 7th anniversary of that great day in 2014 where the people of Scotland came together and voted overwhelmingly to remain part of the United Kingdom. And there the question should have laid, were it not for the fact that the Scottish National Party did not want to accept the democratic choice of the Scottish people and have been agitating ever since for another vote. And of course that was helped as well by the fact that the British government of the day stupidly gave them an awful lot more powers as well, as a sort of reward for losing. Oh man, isn't that mental? given them a reward for losing. Anyway, all of that did was it just, gave them a bouncy bed to bounce back on and continue their campaign, which is still with us and it's not going away in the short term. However, Saturday is the 7th anniversary of that, and A Force for Good will be out. We're doing a piece of activism, so watch the page towards the early afternoon for some live broadcasting from our outdoor activity, which is just going to be a small one with a few folk that are going to be with us. And then the big one is on the next Saturday the 25th, when we're going to be out on the Royal Mile, and we're going to be saying hello to the Smurfs as they pass us on their annual outing down the Royal Mile to Holyrood. As you know, the Smurfs annual outing, also known as the annual SNP Green Party Alba March. And it'll be interesting to see how many people they have this year. But if you want to join us, if you want to join our Thin Red Line, then please contact this page, tell us you want to stand with us, and we will send you all the information that you need. And you can contact us by messaging our Facebook page or by sending an email to us, which is possibly the easiest way of doing it for many people. Send us an email if you want to join us on the 25th of September when we say hello to the Smurfs on their annual outing. That will be at contact at aforceforgood.uk. La 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 la. Looking forward to that. It's going to be a great day. So please do join. Nelson says, great show, Alistair. Glad you're in the house today, Nelson. Yes, as Bill says, it was the day that we saved our country. Sandra says, they're having a wee separatist shuffle in Dundee on Saturday, celebrating getting gubbed. We'll be there to laugh at them. Good. Give us a count as well if you can, Sandra. I'll get some video footage, whatever. But there's not going to be many in Dundee. We're certainly not going to waste our time. AFFG is not going to formally waste our time in Dundee, because there'll be less than there were in Glasgow. That particular group got 320 in Glasgow back on the 14th of August. And so there'll be less than that in Dundee, which means it'll pass in 2 minutes, which is not worth our while getting out of bed for, I'm afraid to say to them. There was a Scottish Nationalist march in Stirling last Saturday. They had 360 exactly, which is very interesting because that's the same number of degrees in the circle which they are perpetually walking around in, as we pointed out to great acclaim on the internet. Well, Stephen says that the 14th of September 2014 was the greatest night of his life other than marrying the wife. It was a pretty good night, I have to say. I was a registered campaigner and I was at the count, and when the count started coming in, straight away people could tell that the Nationalists were going to lose, and there were Nationalists in tears from the very earliest counts because they knew that they had not done it. Thank goodness. Bill says, will we be live streaming the Edinburgh event? Now, we're going to try to, but the previous years we've found, believe this or not, there's no signal on the Royal Mile. Isn't that incredible? Don't know why, but previous years we've been unable to get a signal on the Royal Mile. So we may not be live streaming it, but we'll certainly be videoing it and putting up the highlights of it if we're not able to get a live stream as well, Bill. And if you want to wish somebody the best of British, might be birthdays, might be wedding anniversaries, might be whatever, then you can send them. You can buy these. These are available on our website. We'll put up the link to that. And on the back it says, A Force for Good's Thin Red Line. Stand up for the United Kingdom on Union Street in Glasgow on Saturday the 11th of January 2020. And that was the day that we counted How many did we count of them? We counted 10,156. That's an accurate count. Give or take 3%, as we always say. But they claimed it was 80,000. 80,000. What a nonsense. And folks, before, we've already mentioned a wee book for the Union. Listen to this. We sold 45 copies of this Monday and Tuesday. A great chap, Jeff Taylor, put up a video, and in it he mentioned this wee book and said that it was worth getting. We sold 45 copies Monday and Tuesday. Isn't that amazing? Now imagine if this book was punted by the mainstream. Imagine if I was like on television programs punting it or whatever. I mean, we'd sell literally thousands and thousands. So please do get your wee book for the Union if you've not already got it. It's a great read. And somebody on Twitter this morning also said it was a great read. And let me just bring up that comment. Just a random person that we don't know about has just put up this comment about it, saying, please just read this. Highly recommended. The sections 23 policies to strengthen our union, along with the united we stand, divided we fall section, are both positive and excellent. If you believe in Britain, please follow at UK A Force for Good. So thank you to the person that put that up on Twitter this morning. Bill says, do you sell AFFG flags and stickers? We have AFFG flags and stickers, but we don't sell them. Okay, we don't sell stickers because we're concerned about the danger of being accused of, if people stick them up where they shouldn't, and then we're the bad guys, because the system will come after us. But flags, we do have flags, but they're all for activism. We do have an AFFG flag badge, though, which you can get at our shop, and we'll put up the link to that as well. That's quite a good reseller. We also sell, of course, on the same shop, we also sell our custom-made Union Jacks, which are 3x2 and which have a hole here to put the stick in. Open hem to put the stick in. Folks, that's enough of my salesmanship just now. It's been a great show. We had a great guest. Thanks very much to Ashley, and thank you for everybody who's been coming in and watching and enjoying the show. You're great listeners. You're great folk. We really do love having you in and conversing. Sorry if we haven't brought up anybody's comments. We're on 4 different platforms for most of the show, so I'm not always able to catch everybody's comment, but thank you very much for everybody who's commented anyway. Your comments are up there for others to see, at least. So it just remains for me to say we'll be back next week. God bless the United Kingdom, and God save the Queen. See you next week.